The sewer solvent scandal. It's the biggest case of government corruption in Iowa's history.
Any comment? Just that I'm sorry.
235 bribes. 6 arrests.
There's going to be a prison sentence.
Over $1 million of your money wasted, and they denied it right up to the end.
Is somebody lining their pockets here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think so.
That's when the News Channel 2I team got involved.
Can I ask you guys what you're dumping?
Now it's your turn to ask the questions on this News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting. The sewer solvent scandal. Now, here are your hosts, Bob Hilton and Amy Johnson.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our live town hall meeting on the Cedar Rapids sewer solvent scandal.
Good evening, everyone. It's a story of bribery and corruption within the government of Cedar Rapids. A story of our tax dollars wasted and the struggle to make things right.
That's right. Tonight, we're here with the mayor and the city council of Cedar Rapids to explore just how something this rotten could happen for so long, and what the city and what you can do to prevent it from ever happening again.
Ever since our I-team broke the scandal story, you've been calling with concerns and questions. In just a moment, we'll give you the phone number you can call so you can speak out. But first, I want to take the time to introduce our Cedar Rapids City Council members and our mayor who are here tonight. Bob? Don Thomas, on my left, my far left, is the Cedar Rapids Streets Commissioner. Next is J.D. Smith, the Public Safety Commissioner. Larry Serbisek, the mayor of Cedar Rapids. Lyle Hansen, our finance commissioner. And Dave Kramer, who is the parks commissioner. And gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen, we also have a special thanks tonight from our governor, Governor Branstad. He said he'd also like to thank everyone for taking part in the town hall meeting tonight. And we had a chance to speak with the governor today. He had this message for our city council and you in eastern Iowa.
So good luck with the meeting tonight, and I really think the community can be very proud that you've taken this action, and I hope the meeting tonight will help you develop a strategy to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future.
Excellent. Very good. Hey, thank you so
Now,
much.
to help develop a strategy for the future, the City Council will take questions from viewers about the sewer solvent scandal. We'll open up the phone lines coming up in just a moment, and you can ask your questions live on the air. Please take the time to get a pencil and write this number down. It's the number you need to dial if you'd like to ask a question. 395-7686. Again, that's 395-7686. Again, we'll get to your questions coming up in just a few minutes.
Now, before we go forward, let's take a few steps back and find out where this all began. Back to when our I-team investigator Sandy Reescraft first broke the story of the sewer solvent scandal, and that was in March of this year. And Sandy, when did you first realize that what a humongous story this was going to turn out to be?
Well, it all began for me when Carol Martin and her group Citizens for Responsible Government came to me, and I started going over a lot of the invoices for the chemical. I sensed then that something was very wrong here. But when we tried to get those pictures of the sewer solvent being dumped, those pictures that I'm sure many of you have already seen, that's when I really became suspicious. Then Sewer Department Supervisor Rick Hermanson was enraged by the pictures we took of the dumping. It's what made us start asking some very serious questions. And here's what happened from start to finish.
It was early last March when we witnessed this, the dumping of about $6,000 worth of chemical down the 2nd Street sewer line by Quaker Oats.
Can I ask you guys what you're dumping? What is this stuff?
This stuff turned out to be hundreds of thousands of York tax dollars going right down the drain. The chemical is a sewer solvent used to clean grease from city sewer lines. But city workers told us it was dumped, not because it works, but so the city could buy more. We were shocked, and so were you. So we started asking questions, and what we found is still hard to believe. For years, the city purchased sewer solvent from one supplier, Intertrade Chemical, without taking bids. For years, too, the city was paying Intertrade, owned by former Lisbon Mayor Steve Golden, a whopping $29 a gallon for the solvent. But get this, Golden paid just $3.50 a gallon for the stuff. He was making an 800% profit off his sales to the city, sales that totaled more than $500,000 of your tax money on sewer solvent alone since 1989. Former Sewer Department Supervisor Rick Hermanson was the man purchasing the solvent for the city.
Is there something going between some employees and Intertrade? I mean, is somebody lining their pockets here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think so.
But Hermanson did know. After our first report on the sewer scandal aired, the state DCI was called in to investigate. On June 13th of this year, Rick Hermanson was advised of his rights and admitted he indeed did accept bribes on several occasions from Steve Golden and Intertrade. And in the early morning hours of October 10th, 7 months after the sewer investigation began, the Golden House came falling down in the city of Cedar Rapids. Streets Department Program Director Bill Lockhart was yanked from his office at Public Works, handcuffed and taken to jail. 4 other past or present department managers were also jailed on a total of 28 state charges of theft and bribery. Intertrade owner Steve Golden, who allegedly bilked you, the taxpayers of this city, out of more than $1 million, faces 15 state charges and a federal charge.
Any comment? Just that I'm sorry. Are you guilty?
We're looking at a situation where really the most serious case of public corruption in this state's history is going to have a substantial penalty tied to it.
Whatever the penalty, it's the people of this city who are now left to wonder why. Why did this happen, and could it have been avoided? This woman says yes. Former payroll clerk in the auditor's office, Beverly Van Horn, says she smelled a rat a year and a half ago. She witnessed all the money going out to Golden, reported her suspicions to superiors at City Hall, but nothing was ever done.
What did you think was going on here?
Well, I knew there had to be some paybacks or bribes somewhere.
Well, now that we've heard about the dumping, the woman who first blew the whistle, the arrests, and the aftermath of the sewer solvent scandal, one thing remains that we haven't explored. And Sandy, we haven't heard what you experienced covering this story. I imagine you have some stories to tell. What was it like?
Well, first of all, let me just say that this is probably the biggest story of my career so far. It was the most challenging by far. It was tough from the start because people told me, they came to me with information and said, Sandy, I don't know if you want to touch this one. I don't know if you want to have any part of this. You don't know what you're dealing with or who you're dealing with here and who you may have to confront during the investigation. People came to me and were fearful throughout of retaliation. So in that respect, it was really a difficult story to cover. Also, probably one of the most trying times was the night that we aired the first story. Mm-hmm. Steve Golden called me and told me personally that I was ruining his life and that of his family. And that to me, that hit home. It was hard for me because throughout this thing we haven't been trying in any way to ruin anyone's life. No. We just realized that something wasn't right here, and we really wanted to make people accountable for their actions.
I remember as you were going through all this, well, I'm sure some questions still remain in your mind about the sewer solvent scandal. What do you hope this town hall meeting accomplishes tonight?
Well, I think everybody here agrees on one thing. We hope that something positive can come out of this. I'm a member of this community. I'm proud of the community I live in. And let's take this experience. Let's move on. Let's move on in a positive direction, and let's all be proud again.
I agree. Sandy, thanks very much. Now we want to get going. Bob, what do you have for us?
We know, Amy, many of the viewers that we've spoken to can't believe that a scandal like this could happen in our state, much less right here in Cedar Rapids. So let's put it to the council right now and the mayor. How could something like this happen in our city? Mr. Mayor, everybody's looking at you.
Sure. Bob, I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is the action the City Council has taken in early March. We became aware of the situation. We immediately asked for the assistance of the DCI. The DCI, through their efforts in a joint law enforcement effort, really uncovered a lot of the specifics that resulted in the subsequent arrests. I think what we've tried to do in the last several years is to become more open in city government. That wasn't always the case in Cedar Rapids, and I think that's how it happens. Being open allows people to step forward and speak what's on their mind.
Right. Okay.
Mayor, perhaps you can answer kind of a difficult question, or any of the commissioners here. Where does the responsibility lie? It's a tough one to call, but where does the responsibility lie?
I think I'll try that, Amy. I think we, the City Council, feel it is our responsibility. We're elected to serve the citizens of the community, and we take that challenge very, very seriously. And it's our job to try and provide the best service at the lowest cost, and that means making difficult decisions sometimes. Very proud of what the council did here. I think we dealt with some very difficult issues over the past week, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
We acted very swiftly. We acted with unanimous support, and I think it's the kind of thing that we take responsibility for, and we feel that that's where the buck has to stop with the 5 people you see here, the City Council.
Well, no disrespect meant by this, but a moment ago I asked you a question, how could this happen? We've talked about how we've stopped it and what's going on now, but the question that's on a lot of people's minds is, how could this happen? How did it begin? How was it allowed to continue?
Part of it might be some of the issues we've dealt with recently. As you know, we formed a efficiency and reform committee to look at our operations from the outside in, and that was done last year. Through that, we've uncovered a number of areas that we can improve. We can do a better job, and some of those involve our purchasing techniques, some of them involve our receiving techniques. Commissioner Thomas has been very active in the particular area down at the Public Works building in implementing some of those policies on how we receive, how we check things in, how we ensure that we're getting what we pay for. So I think part of that is just taking a look at ourselves and trying to find ways to be better at what we do. And that's an ongoing task, and it'll never end. But I think this council acted swiftly and dealt with some tough issues.
Before we go any further, I want to make a very important point here that we did invite former Cedar Rapids Mayor Don Canny and ex-Streets Commissioner Wayne Murdoch to be here tonight. Wayne Murdoch declined, and Don Canny is out of town until tomorrow. So we want to establish that right away, that they were invited to be here tonight. Don Thomas, maybe you can answer this question. Do you feel that the city has responded as best it can, and that everything has been done to correct what's been undone?
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I think we've analyzed this thing very carefully. We've been waiting a long time, the 7.5 months while the DCI did the investigation. I've been anxious for a number of months to see this get to a point where we would have an answer. I was very surprised and at the answer, and overwhelmed by the information that I read last week. And I think we have responded very quickly. We immediately got involved with the terminations and unanimously agreed to those, and we're proceeding with very positive steps in the Streets Department. And I think the morale and attitudes are going to be going very well from now on.
Okay, Don, thanks. Well, when we return, you can get the answers you've been searching for about the sewer solvent scandal.
That's right. We're going to open the phone lines now. You can call us live on the air right here at News Channel 2 and talk to the council. Your questions are ready to be answered. The number is 395-7686. We'll be back.
Stay with us.
This is a News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
Welcome back, everyone, to a history-making town hall meeting. Right now, we're asking the Cedar Rapids City Council how the sewer solvent scandal happened.
Now, we've been talking to them. Now, it's time to hear from you. So we'll take your calls live on the air. If you have a comment or a question about the scandal, give us a call. The number at News Channel 2 is 395-7686. As a matter of fact, we have a caller on the air right now, so please go ahead. What's your name?
I'm a citizen, and my question is this. In today's Gazette on page 8C, there's over $3 million of legal expenditures of the city of Cedar Rapids. 117 of those are for more than $1,000. How many of those have the item or service for which the money was paid? Not one. Almost $3 million. Which council member is responsible for supervising this, and will it change?
Gentlemen?
I'll take a stab at it. I guess I'm not real clear on the question. The city clerk publishes in the newspaper 2 weeks after the council meeting, or rather 1 week later, what the expenditures that were approved the week previous to that by the City Council. We have over 1,400 claims that are approved each week. Originally, when this all came about, the City Council was following state guidelines as far as taking quotes and bids for projects. All projects over $25,000 were under sealed bids, and any operational expenses were to be purchased by the department head with the approval of the commissioner. Since that time, we have required all purchases, both operations and for improvements, equipment, cars, computers, whatever, any expenditures over $5,000 to be approved by City Council resolution. Between $1,000 and $5,000 to be approved by the commissioner in charge, so that we have tightened the review of every purchase. In the past, the council's policies were in accord with the state code, but in order to tighten up after this.
Did you say 5,000 or 500?
5,000.
Okay, great.
As the gentleman indicated, we have a large number of purchases each week. We have a $200 million budget for the fiscal year. Okay. So we have to draw the line at some point as far as the level of review.
Right.
Okay. I believe we have another caller on the air. Go ahead. What is your question?
Okay, my question is, my name is Sue, and I was just kind of wondering if, by any chance, if you've looked into the other departments of Cedar Rapids and how far you will go back to do this, and if to do this, would you possibly pick, citizens here in Cedar Rapids, or would you get certain people to go and look into the books to check out to see if there's any wrongdoing from way back maybe even 10 years?
Rather complicated question.
I'll take a stab at that,
Go ahead.
Mayor. I think the council made it clear when this first came out last spring that there were possible allegations of wrongdoing or bribery or kickbacks, and the council acted swiftly the next day by unanimously, through Commissioner Smith and contacts with the DCI, called in a state agency to investigate. We didn't want any consideration of a biased internal probe, so we called in the state agency, and it took over 2,000 man-hours of professional investigators, 7.5 months to investigate this. They have looked into various departments, numerous allegations. They have 22.5 boxes worth of files that they have looked into. They have 3 ongoing investigations at this point. I think the swiftness with which the council acted as far as the charges that came out last week indicates to the degree that we take this very serious, we won't tolerate it. And if anything else does come to our attention, I'm sure the council will act just as swiftly.
Well, speaking of the council, we need to get responses from everyone. Yes, Dan?
I might add on to that I think the questioner asked how far back we were going to look. The criminal investigation of both the county and the state and the federal only went back as far as the statute of limitations would allow them. So that's 3 years in some cases a little further than that. So no, we did not go back 10 years or 15 years to look at what what kind of bill we may have run up over that time. They only went back as far as the statute of limitations would allow them.
Okay. We also sent our cameras around today to get responses from citizens that wouldn't necessarily be able to give us a call tonight, and we have one of those for you right now. Here's a question.
I'm Dick Henderson. I was just wondering how this could happen in city business. In private enterprise, this can never happen without being caught by the auditors.
Excellent question. And
very good question.
If this were a private company, what would be happening right now?
Right.
Heads would be rolling.
Dave, why don't we hear from you? What do you think?
Well, our company, like this gentleman's company, is based on trust. That you trust your people to do the work correctly and properly. And if they're out to steal from you, they're going to steal from you. Yeah. Let's bring them back to banks. Why do banks have embezzlements? They got auditors all over the place. That's not excusing it, but that happens. But I was a department head, worked very hard to run a tight ship, do it right. Never was bribed, never was attempted. But all of us who are trying to do the job correctly are really angry about this.
So you're saying, as a department head, there's only so much you can do. You can't control everything your employees will do?
You remember this was the department head that stole, supposedly.
True.
So then how are these controls going to have a chance of working that we're talking about, that we've got everything under control now?
Bob, any set of rules that you set up if someone is determined to get around it, they will find a way. Using Commissioner Kramer's example as far as banks, they're still bank robbers. You know, it doesn't matter how tight your security is, someone is determined to break the rules, they'll manage. And the trick is that we have tried to place better controls in place as far as securities to prevent or to reduce the temptation from some of these acts continuing. That's not to say it won't ever happen again. It's happened in the past. Fortunately, I think the city can be proud that it doesn't happen here very often.
Mayor?
I'd like to build on to what Lyle just said too, as well, and people may not be aware, but the state auditor's office has also, besides the DCI, been in, looked through all of our records and gave us some recommendations which have already been implemented regarding controls. And I think that's an important part, is that assurance for the community for the future that these things are not going to happen again. State Auditor's Office is a very, very thorough organization and did a very excellent job of pointing out some things that we could do better. So we feel very good about that.
Okay. We have to take a break just for a moment, gentlemen. I'll tell you what, we'll be right back with more of your comments coming up in just a moment. Well, regardless of how the corruption originally happened, once the scandal was exposed, the City Council took immediate steps to deal with it. What were those steps?
And why did it take a scandal to get precautions against corruption in place? Those answers plus more of your calls as our News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting continues.
This is a News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
Welcome back to our live Town Hall meeting on the Cedar Rapids sewer solvent scandal. Now, our focus now is on what the city's doing to prevent corruption in the future and why it hasn't happened sooner.
Almost immediately following our I-Team report in March, the City Council began changing policies to put accountability back into your government. We'll talk to the Council about that in just a moment.
But first, we want to remind you that you can get your questions asked tonight. Call this number you see on the screen, 395-7686, and we'll take more of your calls in just a moment.
Now, here's some of what the Council has done so far to deal with the sewer solvent scandal. The Council fired 2 city employees. They created a standard purchasing policy for all departments within the city. The Council now requires city departments to take bids on every purchase over $500. They've reorganized the sewer department management, and the Council is trying to hold every single city employee more accountable for their actions.
Don Thomas, Streets Commissioner. A lot of people have said, why the heck has it taken something so terrible to get these motions in action? Why has it taken a scandal to get things changed like we're talking about now?
Well, first of all, you may or may not remember, but I inherited this situation, and I was rather surprised, and I was helped out before I came into office by hearing from Beverly Van Horn that there might be something going on. There was some question about the amount and the cost of the sewer solvent that was being used by the city. So I immediately got involved with an investigation myself. We were very busy through January, and by the time February came around, I had enough information on my part that I asked for the solvent to quit purchasing the solvent, and I think that the policies that we've now got into effect will be good double checks, and I just don't see that that's going to happen.
Well, you mentioned that you inherited it. Actually, we all inherited it, but it was known about for years, and then someone told about it a year and a half ago. So how effective are these policies that we've put into being now? How effective can they be?
Well, I think that they can be very effective because I sign anything over $1,000 purchase orders for that, and attached to that information is the documentation that goes with the purchase order. In other words, if there's 3 bids, they're all there attached to that. And the reason we take whether we take low bid or middle bid or high bid, the reasons are right there written down. Right. Now, if that information isn't there, then I'm not going to sign it. It's going back. And if I have any questions, I'll get over there to the streets department and deal with the situation.
Bob, I guess I'd like to challenge you as far as the council's known about it for years, because it wasn't until March that the council was made aware of it, and we acted quickly on it then. The notion that sewer solvent has been dumped down the drains and sewers of the town, well, dumped I'm not sure is the right word, applied or used, because the grease buildup in the sewers, which is causing sewer backups, the solvent was purchased for a specific use. And dumping, applying it, placing it where it belonged was actually down the drain.
Mayor Serbisek, I have a question for you. How responsible is the former administration for this problem? Does the responsibility lie with them?
I think in terms of pointing fingers or pointing blame, that's not the important part. The important part is getting to the bottom of the issue and taking action to prevent it from ever happening again. I think we recognize that some of the policies we had in place prior to the most recent policies we've adopted did allow these kinds of things to occur. I don't know if pointing blame is the real issue here. I think ensuring that it never happens again is the key issue.
I agree with you there. J.D., maybe you can answer this question. How should Cedar Rapids residents feel about their city government right now? Should they have confidence in their leaders to do the right thing?
Well, I would hope they'd have confidence, but I'd like to go back a little bit to your earlier question.
Sure.
It was the operational part of buying the chemical that got out of hand. And as Commissioner Hansen said, the policy that was in effect at that time was that the department heads should be taking quotes on that and their commissioners should know about it. And I think it fell down at that area in the past. This came up, at least according to some of the articles I've seen, a year or 2 years ago to that particular commissioner. I'm appalled that it wasn't taken care of at that time.
All right, we've got to take another break here. We'll come back and we'll touch on that. Plus, we'll find out, perhaps, can we get our money back? So we'll talk about those things, take your calls a little bit later. We'll be right back.
Please stay with us.
This is KGAN, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, Iowa City, Dubuque. This is a News Channel 2 town hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
Welcome back. The sewer solvent scandal has cost us, the taxpayers, more than $1 million since 1986, and that's $1 million that we know about.
About $120,000 of that was allegedly used to bribe Cedar Rapids city officials in the streets and sewer departments. All so that the city of Cedar Rapids would continue to buy Steve Golden's overpriced sewer solvent.
Now the question is, how do we know for sure that this kind of corruption is not happening as we're speaking in other city departments? I've personally heard some city workers say they feel that this is just the tip of an iceberg.
I think we've all heard that. Well, now it's time to take your calls. Before we go ahead and go to our phone lines, I want to give you the number. If it's busy, please keep trying. Call back again. That number is 395-7686, 395-7686. Let's go ahead and take a call. Hello, you're live on News Channel 2. What's your question?
Yeah, there's 5 or 6 people that got arrested for taking them bribes. I was wondering if there's any attempt from getting that $120,000 back from them people.
How do we get our money back?
Absolutely.
Good question.
Absolutely, and the City Council, in conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office, it's still part of an ongoing investigation, but we are going to do everything in our power to try and reclaim any of the dollars that are deserved to the citizens of the community.
How do you do that? How can you go about getting it back?
In a lot of different ways. I don't think there's any one place where that will come from, but we are currently, and I would refrain from commenting on the specifics of how that happens, but we are investigating all of our options through our legal department as well as under some of the federal and state statutes.
So there is hope to get our money back. All right, let's go to another caller, please. Your question?
If this is the tip of the iceberg, I question the credibility of giving amnesty to what you're calling, in your words, petty thieves.
I'll answer that question.
I think it's directed toward you, sir.
The word amnesty is an incorrect usage on, and I think that's not what the intent was here. We have 1,300 employees in the city of Cedar Rapids. Those 1,300 employees are doing what I consider to be an excellent job. Some of the controls weren't in place. There were policies that went on in some departments that shouldn't have perhaps gone on. I think what we were talking about is ensuring that some of those things don't happen in the future. I don't believe that there is widespread, whatever you might want to say, petty theft or whatever. That does not occur. We have some very hardworking, dedicated employees in the city of Cedar Rapids. And I think this, because of the ugliness of this kind of situation, has caused a lot of people that work hard every day to get a bad reputation and a bad name.
Okay, we want to continue to answer viewer questions. Go ahead, you're live on the air on News Channel 2. What's your question?
Yes, what city officials did Bev Van Horn go to with the information before your report? And did she tell the current Cedar Rapids auditor? Why was she fired?
Three good questions.
Yes, I think I want to add here, I think we're going to have, Sandy's going to have a report on Ms. Van Horn coming up in just a little bit. But Commissioners, Mayor, anyone want to answer that?
I guess for starters, she wasn't fired. She resigned.
Why did she resign? Was it a part of this?
Bob, I guess you'd have to ask her if Sandy hasn't already. But there was a difference of opinion as far as a new job opening in the department, and she was dissatisfied with the situation and submitted her resignation.
All right, well, as Amy said, we'll have more on that with Sandy coming up a little bit later. We've got another caller. Your question, please.
Yes, I'd like to know why city employees have tools to use at their disposal when the tax-paying citizen has to go out and rent them if they need to use one.
Well, I don't think they really have them at their disposal. Is that correct?
They don't. They don't have them at their disposal. They have them for use during the hours that we're doing work for the city, and that can be sometimes 24 hours a day when we're out cleaning streets or cleaning snow especially. So it's intended that they return all those tools each day and turn them in, and that's what we're trying to do. Is make sure
so a lot of workers have taken advantage.
To take them home, and we've gone through that with them, and they understand. I talked to them this morning again about it.
So hopefully that won't happen again.
All right, hopefully not.
All right,
okay.
Very good. Still ahead, you'll hear from the woman who first blew the whistle. We were talking about her a moment ago.
That was 1.5 years ago. So why wasn't something done before now? That and more when we come back.
This is a News Channel 2 town hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
Welcome back, everyone. We're told our phones are ringing off the hook. We want to get to each and as many of the calls as we can in just a moment, so please be patient with us. Stay in there. Prosecutors say they've traced the bribery, theft, and corruption in the Cedar Rapids city government back to 1986.
But you know, the first allegations of wrongdoing surfaced just 1.5 years ago.
Why did it take so long, about 6 years, for someone in city government to spot wrongdoing?
And then the question comes up, why did the corruption continue for more than a year until our News Channel 2 I-Team report forced city government to listen? We'll ask the City Council those questions. We'll take your phone calls in just a moment.
But now let's meet the woman who first blew the whistle. And Sandy, I know you spoke exclusively with this woman last week. Tell us again who she is and what she had to say.
Amy, the whistleblower was then city payroll clerk Beverly Van Horn. When Beverly discovered the corruption 1.5 years ago, she says she took her concerns to then Streets Commissioner Wayne Murdoch and her boss, current city auditor Bob McMahon. When nothing came of that, Beverly says she turned to government watchdog Carol Martin, who came to us. Throughout the scandal, Beverly stayed behind the scenes until last week. That's when she told her story to News Channel 2.
For 32 years, Beverly Van Horn worked as a payroll clerk in Cedar Rapids City Auditor's office. She knew firsthand what money the city paid out and where it went. Van Horn says something appeared terribly wrong about 1.5 years ago. She smelled a rat in the city's dealings with Steve Golden and Intertrade Chemical.
Why did you become suspicious in the first place?
We had some employees come in to pick up their last checks, and they told me how this solvent was being dumped, just so they could reorder. And they said that they understood that bothered me. And so after they left, I told my boss about it. And all he said was, well, that he thought Golden was a slick one, and it just stopped there. So then I finally got to Carol Martin, and we worked together, and she came to you.
Van Horn says besides going to her boss, City Auditor Bob McMahon, she took her concerns about Intertrade to then Streets Commissioner Wayne Murdoch 1.5 years ago. Van Horn says she just couldn't believe the money the city was spending with Intertrade Chemical. In fact,
for 32 years, you never saw payments like that going out to any other company?
No, I didn't. I have not. And I was in accounts payable for a long time where I could watch things.
Though Beverly has now left the city, she says She feels good about blowing the whistle and would encourage anyone else with information to do the same.
Just do what you think's right. I mean, to me, I feel good about it. I know it was right.
This is amazing. We're all here tonight because one woman had the guts to speak up and actually do something about it and put an end to all of this and give us the report so that we could tell other people about it. Do you have to be a city employee, though, to step in and do something like she did?
Well, we should all know that. Absolutely not. Right. I mean, this is a clear example of that. Carol Martin is a good example of that. She's not afraid to ask questions. She's not afraid to dig and to look into things. And the point here is that just one person can make a big difference.
You could be the next person that does that. Amy?
As I said earlier, our phone lines are jammed right now. If you'd like to make that call, please still try. Our number is 395-7686. We want to go right to the phones and answer your questions. Go ahead. You're live on the air on News Channel 2. What is your question?
Yes, I'd like to know, when Carol Martin comes in and asks city employees questions, it has been known that these city employees get reprimanded. And, I mean, are there other things that are getting covered up?
Good question. She
yes.
says if you come in with a complaint, you're going to get reprimanded.
No.
No?
That's not the case,
wow.
Amy. I'm not sure what the caller is making reference to, but all city records, well, all permitted city records, certain records are subject to privacy laws, civil rights, litigation, such cases as that. But otherwise, information is available, and city employees are under instructions to provide it on a timely basis. They're not required to drop
so you want
everything
people to come
doing.
in and give you this information if they have it?
Yes.
You beg for it?
Absolutely.
Very good. Another caller, please. Your question.
Okay, what I was noticed today in the paper was that the two fired employees were not going to get the $15,000 and $5,000 retirement benefits or whatever. Now, are they still going to get paid retirement or not?
Are they going to get any benefits of any kind that you know?
Mayor Serbisek?
The IPER system that city employees operate under is independent of the city. We don't have control over that, so that part is not anything the city council has action over. The specifics of the action that the city council took yesterday regarding the other benefits, sick leave, vacation, and pay, are confidential as a result of a private meeting that the city council had to discuss that. But the article is essentially correct. It was in the newspaper.
J.D., how do you feel? Many people out there would say these two men allegedly are crooks. They don't deserve the benefits. Do you think it's the right decision?
I think we've made the right decision, and the court system is now taking care of the situation as far as these gentlemen are concerned. I think City Council needs to look at the management end of it on what went on and tighten those things up.
Does this whole scandal bring into question the form of government that we have, the commission government? Is this thing outdated? Are we having the wrong kind of government? Do we have enough checks and balances?
I would have to say that the form of government doesn't have anything to do with it. It happens in all forms. For over 20 years, I worked as a DCI agent. I can tell you that I worked in other communities in the state of Iowa that had the same kind of situations with different forms of government. Look around the country, you see it. And one of your callers earlier said, how does it happen in the city and it doesn't happen anywhere else? I suggest that, yes, it happened in the city. It's very unfortunate, but go back and read your news accounts this past year. There are two major companies here in Cedar Rapids that had the very same type of things happen to them by very high officials.
Okay.
We're not the only ones.
Okay, J.D., we got to go ahead and get our calls in before the end of the show. Go ahead. You're live on the air.
Yeah, I'd like to know who makes up all the schedules to say how much manpower goes and does each job. Because it seems like they got a lot of wasted manpower standing around doing nothing, such as they have 4 workers and one person doing the job and 3 watching. Is it necessary to have 3 supervisors at a time, or?
Is this a fair comparison? It seems like anytime you talk about city workers, they're saying that there's 6 people doing the job of 1 person. Is this a fair comparison that he's giving right now?
Well, I think the schedules are made up to take care of the projects that are done by the quadrant foreman in each of the quadrants, and sometimes there needs to be a foreman there. Sometimes there's an inspector there. They each have different qualifications. The union has certain things that allows people to do, and it's because of that that we have a need sometimes for what it looks like more people than there should be. But everybody's supposed to be working and doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, and they're not supposed to be standing around.
All right, we have another question from a viewer. We went out with our cameras today, and here's that question.
My name is Penny Merstick, and my question is, because of the corruption, will there be any restructuring in the city because of what's happened about this?
That's a very good question. Will there be any restructuring in the city? I imagine the sum has already taken place. Gentlemen?
I can take that.
Don?
I believe we've touched on it already, that the restructuring is underway. It started almost immediately after we knew what was going on, and there was an investigation underway. We decided to get purchasing practices in line and change them from the way they were, and now more recent, and the council has totally adopted those purchasing practices. And now we more recently are looking at the receiving practices to get in line with the state auditor's request to do a better job with those things. So.
All right. We have another caller. Could we have that question, please?
Hello. I have a question about the city employees that were not management and have not been involved or proven in stealing and all that, and who feel sort of betrayed by this whole thing that management has done. My question is, what is being done for these employees who are honest, hard-working employees and who are really hurting over this and who are being asked, if they got their sewer solvent payment today when they're going out and collecting garbage and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of the public is harassing these city employees. What's being done to help these? Right. Any assistance programs for those?
And this is a very important question because not only are there a lot of city workers who say they're hurting, but what can be done to change the perception of Cedar Rapids city government? Yes.
I would like to ask the community that's watching today to understand that this is a serious issue. Everybody who works for the city feels the pain of what happened and does a good job of what they do. This was a management problem isolated to a few individuals. And what I'd ask the community to do is not joke about what happened here, because the people that they joke with take it pretty personally. Absolutely. And we've been in a number of meetings with those employees and found out about some of the horror stories of what people have said in the community. So I guess I would ask the community, please understand this is not a joking matter for any of us or any city employee, and please respect that and don't tell unfair jokes to anyone. Because
and if anybody has a problem dealing with this, they should come to their department heads and managers and say, hey, help me out here. Tell me how I can deal with this, right?
That's right.
All right, very good. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with some more phone calls in just a moment.
Please stay with us.
This is a News Channel 2 Town Hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal.
We welcome you back to our meeting. We're rapidly running out of time.
We are. We have many, many callers on the line, and we want to get to them immediately. If you can hear me, go ahead. Let's take your call.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, go ahead with your question.
What accounting firm does the city's annual audit, and why didn't they suggest any of the safeguards that the state auditor's office should be put into place?
Wow, you're smiling there, so go ahead.
I'm afraid you put me on the spot. I can't remember the name.
Well, it's okay, but there is one, and answer the second part of the question.
We do go out for bids, and we have the books audited every year. The city has been awarded excellence in auditing or accounting 14 out of the last 15 years. And
that's stunning. How do they get that when this happened?
The reference was made to banks earlier as far as embezzlement that takes place at banks. There was nothing found wrong with the accounting practices with the city, nothing whatsoever. The state auditor confirmed that. There was some question as far as some of the purchasing procedures. Those have been addressed by the city council. We are continuing to address additional procedures to tighten them up.
Okay, thank you. Next caller, please, your question.
If I could add in, can I jump in just a second? The state auditor has looked at the city's books before. They were called back by the DCI to look specifically at one department and those practices going on there. So this was a special audit, very narrow in scope.
I have a question for all of you. Just going back to Beverly Van Horn just for a moment. Why did it take 6 years for someone to notice that hundreds of thousands of dollars was being spent on this, perhaps incorrectly. What took so long? Why? It's a tough question, but any answers?
I can only relate that in January, Carol Martin came to my office and made some comments about the sewer solvent purchases. It was at that time that my office put together a list going back about 2 years of all the sewer solvent that was purchased, and we made a typed list of that. And at that time, since it's public record, I gave Carol Martin a copy of it because she brought it to my attention, and I immediately took a copy of it over to Commissioner Thomas, and I said, I think you got a problem.
But it was still 3 months before.
As a matter of fact, that's the list that Sandy Riesgraf showed on TV when she broke her story.
All right, we're just about out of time. I would like to give each of you gentlemen a chance to respond and say anything that you'd like. You'll have 30 seconds apiece. We know it was tough being down here tonight and facing the public's questions and things.
Yes, we greatly appreciate it.
Don Thomas, we start with you, sir.
Well, with this 7.5-month investigation now behind us, I'm interested in proceeding with our everyday normal business in a very positive manner. And I believe that most of our workers are honest, hard workers, and I've stressed with them that my goal is to proceed from this point in time on with efficiency and with good attitudes and honesty. That's very important to me, and I think it's got to be very important to them. We need to improve our image to our customers as citizens. I'm encouraged that we can get on with normal business now while the legal system takes care of the due process of law in this situation.
All right, thank you very much.
J.D., in 30 seconds or less?
Well, the investigation isn't quite over yet, and the legal process is taking its avenues. I think it's time that the council tightened up its management practices and take care of the respective departments. And I encourage any citizen that has any questions about any department to call any one of us.
All right, very good. Mayor?
Again, I'd like to thank KGAN for sponsoring tonight's town meeting. I think, as the other commissioners pointed out, a tough issue. We elected 5 people last year in this community to deal with tough issues. We're beginning to continue the effort towards purchasing, receiving all those policies, and I'd just like to assure the people in this community that the City Council will not stop once this investigation is over to make change. Change is ongoing, change for the better, and we've got people here that will deal with those issues.
Lyle?
Just to echo what's been said, I agree, but to build on that, I guess the community needs to remember that this is only a black eye, it's not a death blow. We have an excellent community here, excellent city workers. We have a wonderful place to live and work. And the council is working with that to continue to make it a better future for all of us.
All right, Commissioner Kramer.
I'd just like to point out that the people in the field, the guys that are working, men and women working in the city, are 99.9% honest, hardworking individuals. And they are also angry about this because they have been smeared just as bad as anybody. And they're going to take the hit for what 5 bad people have done.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate your concern and your care for being here tonight. Well, it's clear from tonight's discussion that the sewer solvent scandal is far from over, but we are making progress. We hope our town meeting has helped you to understand what went wrong and what the City of Cedar Rapids is doing to move forward.
We'd like to thank our Mayor, Larry Servicek, and the City Council members Don Thomas, J.D. Smith, Lyle Hansen, and David Kramer. We'd also like to thank you at home for calling in your questions, and most of all, for getting involved.
Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
This town hall meeting, the sewer solvent scandal, was produced by KGAN TV, News Channel 2.